Hi, and welcome to The Capsule Life, a show for the most casual and dedicated fans of comics and a member of the Comic Watch family. I'm your host, Sean. Join me and discover what the world of comics and graphic novels have to offer. From one-on-one interviews with industry professionals, roundtable discussions with passionate fans, and reviews on the latest comics, TV shows, and movies. Now let's dive right on in. Hey everyone, thank you for joining us. If this is your first time, thanks for checking us out. If you're a returning listener, thanks for coming back. You may not be surprised that here on the Caption Life show, we love and celebrate anything that is nerdy. If this is a surprise to you, we probably need to have a conversation as to why that might be a surprise. Last year, a mutual of mine on Twitter created a really interesting online community that I'm a part of and that I absolutely love. And it's a really cool idea that I want to talk about in today's episode. The community is called Your Friendly Nerdy Neighborhood. And I wanted to bring the creator on the show to talk about, so please welcome Lauren Smith. In and out of comics for years, Lauren joined the podcasting scene in 2021, starting out by recording interviews and writing reviews for the Wednesday Pull List. She's gone on to work with other groups such as the GWW and the comic book Yeti. She has also had the pleasure to interview fantastic creators such as Ram V, Stephanie Phillips, Rodney Barnes, and more, while her reviews have been recognized by publishers such as Image Comics. Since then, she's branched out into her own nerdy world with her with Your Friendly Neighborhood Comic Show on YouTube and co-hosting the first and only Nightcrawler podcast, Simply Amazing. She's a fan of many things, but you'll usually hear her yelling the most about Nightcrawler, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, and Badass Women. Unabashedly passionate and quirky, her biggest goal in anything she does is to connect with people and nurture community. Lauren, welcome to the show. How you doing?
What's up, Sean? I'm good. How about yourself?
Not bad, this we're recording this on New Year's Day, and I gotta say, I'm actually feeling a little refreshed because I took a nap right before this, so I'm like really energized right now. But let me ask you this: did you had any fun plans on New Year's Eve? Did you do anything exciting?
Well, I'm kind of at that age where I'm in my late 20s and I slowly start realizing that things I did before I can't do anymore, even if I want to. Like I was thinking about the other night, I didn't do this on New Year's, but like a couple months ago, I went on a date with this random guy and we went to this nightclub that I used to really like. It's a gay nightclub called Legends, believe it or not, here. And I used to love going there. Like I've never been a big clubber, but that was one that I was like, hey, this is really nice. It's really big. It's super comfortable and accepting. And also you can go to the bathroom. There's so many bathrooms at that club, and that never happens. And so we got there for the stay a couple months ago, and I learned that they had redesigned it and they had basically combined with another club. And so this other club is taking up the space that now took the good bathrooms. So I get there at 27 years old. I'm like, where am I going to pee? I can't wait in line for an hour. So yeah, I no longer am for the clubbing life because that's not me. So I did not have any big plans to answer your question for New Year's, but I did spend time with family. I have 4 siblings, and so we hung out and the parents were there and it was a ton of fun. We're pretty, rambunctious and goofy. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but there was this spin-off of the Rayman games, the Raving Rabbids. Really games, but they're amazing. If you haven't played them, I feel like you personally would love them because they're filled. That game, the second one, is filled with all these like ridiculous mini games. Like one of them is you're one of the rabbits, the bunnies, essentially, and you're throwing paper at the teacher, but then you have to stop before they turn around because if you don't, they whack you. So your goal is to get the points and win. And you can snitch on people too. So very stupid, but we did dumb shit like that. And we watched like a Miley and Dolly Parton New Year's Eve party, which was fantastic. Absolute banger. I'm all for staying home and watching TV and just being stupid. I think that's a great idea.
There you go. Awesome. Well, for me on New Year's Eve, like I just, it's not exciting for me anymore. Like staying up past midnight to, watch New Year's and all that. Like it's gotten old for me, but we spent time with my family, and my kid who is in elementary, he played a new board game that he got for Christmas with my brother. And my brother is pretty cutthroat when it comes to board games. So I was really proud of him, my kid, because Pretty much, they're playing this new version of Monopoly where it's like a credit card reader instead of like cash. And not only is that happening, but there's like new rules with it. And so my
Right.
brother landed into jail, and my kid explained to him and said that because he's in jail, he cannot, collect rent. He cannot buy anything. He also can't participate in auction because in this game you can auction off stuff. Where if you land on a
Oh,
space,
interesting.
you can, instead of buying it for full price, you can auction it off. So my kid goes, so since you're in jail, you can't buy anything for auctioning off. So when I land on a space, instead of paying $300 for the full thing, I'm just going to auction it off for $20 and get it cheaper. So
Love that for him.
I'm a very proud parent that he was able to do that to my brother, who will be cut, like he'll be ruthless to my kid. He'll be like, I don't care how old he is. Yeah, the life is hard as a school of hard knocks, basically. So um
Yeah.
well, and when we first connected on Twitter, one things that I know we
Mhm.
absolutely connected on was our love of Nightcrawler. And just that you
Yes.
had mentioned you have a podcast dedicated to the character of Nightcrawler, which I absolutely
Nightcrawler.
love. Yeah, and you're wearing the Nightcrawler shirt. Yeah. So I want to ask you, like, what was your start with Nightcrawler? Like, what made you fall in love with that character?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had this like really great sentimental story of like I read the comic, it was most like heartfelt story. No, I think the start of it, I mean that's made my love bigger for him, but that happened like a lot later. The
Hmm.
earliest I can remember really seeing him and be like, huh, he's really cool was like playing like the X-Men Legends and the Marvel Ultimate Alliance games. Because he's blue, he's got a tail, he has swords, and he teleports.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to be the teleporting character? I mean, Deadpool's there, but like everybody knows Deadpool already. Like even before he was big, Deadpool was just Deadpool, you know. So
Yeah.
he was just so cool then. And then I was a big fan of him on X-Men Evolution. Um, he was very similar to how he was written in the 70s, which I hadn't read at the time, but I have now.
Hmm.
Where he's just very, silly and flirty, but not in a creepy way. Like, he has that very nice, that good balance. So I really enjoyed that. And I did watch the X-Men 90s series as well, which I enjoyed the series, but I didn't like Kurt as a priest there because that's what they did in the 90s, and they can just
Right.
stop that. So
Right. You know, my love for Nightcrawler is very similar in that it wasn't a huge thing at all. It was more of I grew up Catholic and I was like, oh, he's
mhm.
Catholic too. Like that's cool. And
Yeah,
so that's what made me gravitate to him to begin with, was just because I didn't see a lot of Catholic characters in comics. Like the first one for me was Daredevil, and I've absolutely loved Daredevil, obviously.
I was gonna say
Um,
somehow Daredevil won Catholic hero battle. What the heck?
well,
What the heck, Sean?
and he's been a favorite of mine for like a lot of different reasons as well too. But that just happened to be one of them. Is that he was cool
Mhm.
as a Catholic as well. But with Nightcrawler, that's how it started as well too. It's like, oh, he's the Catholic, so I decided to read up on him because it's just really interesting and fascinating to see Catholicism in the comics and everything.
Mhm.
I don't love him as much as you do. Like I absolutely love him. But I did not start a
Mhm.
podcast about Nightcrawler, so I think you
Yeah, I don't
win.
think you have like four walls in
Yeah,
your house dedicated to him. So you
yeah.
might have to catch up. Where are your Daredevil walls, Sean? Where are they?
But I'm sorry.
Where are your Daredevil walls?
I do, like, I have this and this, right? I have a poster that I bought at Memphis Comic Expo of somebody that drew Daredevil that is really, really good. I absolutely love it. And then
Uh-huh.
my friend Steven, who is a digital artist, he actually just created a Daredevil poster recently, and I think he said that he's going to send me one as well too. So it's the thing is, like, I
Mhm.
have them, but like I'm running out of space, and because if you look at my wall, if you're watching this on YouTube, like I can actually touch my wall right here. So if I scoot back, I'm going to be banging into posters here.
Yeah.
So I have some stuff a little bit higher with the wall space and everything. So I'm going to fill that up, but it's just a space limitation like anything else. So
Just have a Daredevil shed in the backyard. Don't worry about it.
I know. Well, I mean, I figured this is good enough. Having him hang off my
Yeah.
microphone is all I really need to have. So yeah. I gotta say, speaking of Nightcrawler, though, one of the things I've absolutely loved about Nightcrawler in movies is the movie Dark Phoenix. Not a great
Mhm.
movie per se, but I loved how they had the action scene of Nightcrawler in there because I felt like they did a really good job of capturing how how great of a fighter and how vicious he can be when he fights. Because when I forget what happened, but I remember when he snapped and got really angry, it was like you saw that whole scene. He's just like, he is not somebody that you want to mess with after that point, you know. And I didn't know if you felt the same way about that scene or not, but it's like I felt like that scene kind of really did justice in terms of what Nightcrawler is capable of when he's in a fight, and not just, you know, teleporting.
So I don't remember that scene. So
I know,
that's about how
everyone
big.
tries to forget about Dark Phoenix. So I get that.
I mean, so that's probably how big an impression it left on me. I can do a whole thing talking about that Dark Phoenix movie, and not even just trashing it or anything, but there
Right.
was a lot of potential in it that just
I
they
know.
completely missed on. I really remember the beginning of X2, where
Yes.
Nightcrawler teleports and he just wipes through the house like it's nothing, essentially.
Right.
Um, and even then, though, that's not a full demonstration of what he's capable of, because I think
Mhm.
that word you use is very important too.
Right.
Because he's capable of way more than people think, especially, people think, well, he's a priest, or, oh, well, he's just fun and loving, he can never kill. And I'm like, you guys clearly haven't read the comic where, yes, it was an AU Kurt, but technically a Nightcrawler teleport into Blob with a shark and then teleport out and let the shark expand and blow up Blob from the inside. Like, they also haven't read the comic where in Way of X 5 recently in the Krakoan era, he literally teleported a planet.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there's a lot more he's capable of than what we've seen, like, in, like, filmed media.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel kind of bad. Now I have to go rewatch it so I figure out what you're talking about.
I should give you a heads up on that. But yeah, I mean, watch it again, and I'll be interested to see what you think about it. But I just remember thinking that that was probably just a great way, because we haven't seen Nightcrawler in media too often. You know, it's just like the handful of those movies. But I felt like in that scene, it kind of changed
Yeah.
how we see Nightcrawler in terms of like what you said, just kind of like
Hmm.
a fluff character that can transport and that's it. Like he's actually a
Hmm.
really impressive fighter that can really use his teleportation
Right.
skills to his
Well,
advantage
that's,
and not, you know, just be able to go from one place to
yeah.
another. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what blew my mind. Part of doing the Simply Amazing podcast, my co-host Lisa and I, we started chatting through Twitter DMs. I don't remember how. She'll probably get me later for not remembering. She'll be like, "How could you forget?" And I'll feel terrible. But we connected somehow. And we started chatting. And one day, I'm pretty sure she suggested it and was like, "Hey, why don't we do a Nightcrawler podcast just for the heck of it?" And I'm like, I mean, yeah, why not? But now we've been doing it for over a year. It's actually happened and people actually listen to it, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But one thing I really learned from it is that, a lot of people that listen to her are, very niche, hardcore Nightcrawler fans, like people that worship him like I do, like a maniac.
Mhm.
But then there's also so many people like you that, like, even though you're more the Daredevil guy up front, you love him too.
Yeah.
So it's really cool learning about all these other fans that, even if they're not the most vocal about loving and he may not be their number one, they're like, "Oh my gosh, he's freaking awesome." Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll totally listen to a couple episodes when I can, and I would love to talk about him. So that's kind of our favorite thing too, is, we're very open about who we have on the podcast. As long as you're not a really terrible person or something,
Mhm.
we're like, hey, you just like him a bit or you think it's cool and you want to talk about it, come on. Like, we're
Yeah.
not like people that are like, you got to know everything about Kurt. You got to pass the test. Just maybe you read one comic you liked him or you just want to talk about him in Dark Phoenix. Come on. Like,
Right.
so
Yeah.
that's a lot of fun too.
Well, good. Yeah. Well, I take that's an open invitation for anybody that wants to come on the
Oh,
show and
yeah.
talk about it. Yeah. um,
Yeah, absolutely.
so let's talk a little bit about your origin story with comic books. I like to ask all of my
Mhm.
guests the same question, and just talking about your origin story with the comics. Like, was there a particular event or person or a particular issue that got you into comics that you're just like, I need to, you know, start reading more of this?
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of things that got me into comics. So my uncle was the one that got me into them as in a person. He was the one that he used to live in my neighborhood when I was a kid, and I would ride my bike over there, and
Hmm.
I would either, watch cable TV because I have TV till I was 12, so that was a treat. Was to ride my bike over there and watch Disney Channel or whatever. I played video games with him till like 5 a.m. or we talk about comics, watch movies, anything like that. But he was the one that would go to his local comic shop, which I still know it. It's still around, which is really cool in the area. But he would get stacks every week. I mean, a huge stack, like absolutely no joke. It blew my mind. So he's got long boxes probably in New Hampshire somewhere to fill everything. I need to go up there and see what he'll let me nag for a deal. But but I got a lot of it through, video games first, like the X-Men Legends and Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I started really liking the characters, and then I started looking at his comics, and I forgot I did this, but when I was in like 5th grade, so in 5th grade at my elementary school, we had like a school store or whatever, or like a class store, I guess is better to say. And you could like sell people things to get like class money to buy something out of the teacher's like prize bin or whatever.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I hate my little like 5th grade self sometimes, because I'm like, man, my little terrible self was taking my comics and selling them in 5th grade for not even real money, class money. I don't know what I got for them. But the series that is, or the comic, the line that stood out the most to me from when I was younger was actually middle school. In 2006, that's when Civil War came out. And funny enough, that was the first probably series I ever kept up with. I mean, it wasn't ongoing, obviously, and it was the first event I read. So that event means a lot to me compared to other people. I know a lot of other people like trash the event, and I totally understand their frustrations. It's not perfect, but it stood out to me because of how relatable it still is to this day. The fight over safety versus freedom, and it's so relevant. Which is also why I really, 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 really dislike, trying to not say that nasty H word, but I really dislike the Civil War film because of how important and strong the comics were, and what the premise was. So but yeah, Civil War was really big for me. I still have those comics. They're all beat up. I took them to, I think, GalaxyCon last year or this year, and met like the inker and stuff of the books. I didn't mean Mark Miller, but I met like the inker, had him sign them, and he was super nice. He was like, "Oh my God, you read these?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, man. Like, I was a kid." And he's like, "No, this is great." And he happily signed them. He was thrilled that I read the heck out of them. So
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't really have a crazy story, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. No, what's funny is that my uncle was also the one that introduced me to comics, and I told this story many times as well too, but it's funny because I don't think you're the first person on my show that has said that they had an uncle that introduced them to comics. I think the other person was, if I remember correctly, I think was Danny Quick, who is the comics creator of Ace Blade. But yeah, I now I feel like I should start a subreddit saying like, who introduced you to comics and why was it your uncle?
I mean, seriously, like, it's crazy because usually, I tell that story, people are like, it wasn't your dad. And I was like, no, it wasn't. Like, but what's even crazier is that my dad, his big thing is Fantastic Four. And when he was a kid, he collected all of the original run, except he was missing for the longest time issues 1 through 5, but he had literally all other 300 something issues.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's still, I mean, I think he got maybe 4 and 5 recently, but he's still hunting, and obviously you're gonna spend good money for the first 3, but I was like, come on, man, like, of all 300 something issues, those are the ones you miss. Like, I know he kicks himself daily for that, but he loves Fantastic Four. Those are his babies.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and yeah, it's funny, like, looking back on things, like how many people have had that sort of experience where, had they known what they know now, they wouldn't got rid of their comics, and I love my uncle's story about how he used to have a lot of the first prints of these comic issues that would be like so valuable now, but he doesn't have them anymore because he did something to get himself in trouble, and my grandfather, to punish him, took his comic books and threw it in the fireplace.
No, that is cruel. Oh
yeah. Well,
that would ruin me.
I know. And at that time, like, comics, like the value of comics wasn't how it is now, right? Because that was still, in the 70s, late 60s and all that. And so there wasn't really a market for these valuable comics, but it's just, when he became adult and he sees, all these issues that he could have had and possibly sold
Mhm.
later and all that. I think he was just like, I should have been not a troublemaker.
I
So,
know, that's awful. I'm just imagining, like, somebody throwing a giant size X-Men #1 in the fireplace. I'd lose my mind, like, abs don't do that to me.
yeah, I think he had the first issue of the first X-Men comic book too, first print and all that. So,
Jeez.
yeah, I know. I
Oh
know.
my god.
So let's switch gears and talk a little bit about the I call it online community, but it's a little bit bigger than that because it's also a show. But this thing that you created
Mhm.
called your friendly nerdy neighborhood. So I want to ask you to tell our listeners, how do you explain what that is exactly, and why did you decide to create something?
That's a really good question. In all honesty, I'm still figuring that out. It's very much a evolving work in progress, but I actually, even though that is kind of like I kind of beat myself up a little bit for it, I like it because this isn't something I'm creating just for others to enjoy and I'm doing it and then I'm gonna get all this credit for it. Like there's a reason that, so I did the show first, obviously, and I just
Mhm.
started and it actually was I think it was titled differently. It was originally I'm trying to remember what I originally titled it. Um, I think it was Your Friendly Neighborhood Morning Show originally because I
Oh
was doing it in
yeah,
the mornings only. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Sunday mornings and I was doing it similar to something else I had helped create a while ago and eventually it just kind of evolved in terms I was like, well, this format isn't sticking, whether
Uh,
I was doing something different or whether people watching were asking for something different. I'll like crud. So it was kind of it's been kind of hard for me in terms of me being hard on myself because I'm like, I want to have a formula essentially that works, because that's
right.
what people do now. You get a formula, you get a brand, and people know it and they love it, and that's what you have to keep doing.
Mhm.
Um, but eventually I was like, you know what? Let me just see where this goes. So it's definitely evolved since the first episode a lot. It's very different. Um, but the whole point of me doing the show was that I wanted to really focus on the community, to focus on the people watching and wanting some place where they could safely connect with others without worrying about these other awful things, without
Mhm.
worrying about, being treated poorly or, being told you're terrible for liking something others don't. Like, of course, people disagree, but
Mhm.
um, just somewhere that was safe and enjoyable, and also was inclusive. So the nerdy neighborhood, I usually shorten it. I don't usually call it your friendly. I kind of just put that in the name originally to emphasize the positivity, I think. And I've actually thought about cutting that out, but for now it's staying. But the whole point of the nerdy neighborhood is that, everybody's a part of it. So whether you're, co-hosting with me for an episode or something, whether you are a creator that's been on the show or even just pops in the live chat sometimes, whether you're somebody that watches it in the Discord or, in the live chats, everybody's part of the neighborhood. And I think that's one thing that makes it very different as well from other shows is
Mhm.
the creators that come on and they have a great connection with, they have that connection with the person that runs the show only.
Right.
Um, they don't have that connection with the people that actually watch the show and the people that actually want to be able to talk to them more directly as is appropriate and the creator is willing to do.
Mhm.
So everybody's a part of the nerdy neighborhood in their own way too. So some, we have creators in our Discord, which is really great. They want to chat with everybody. And we have some other people that aren't in the Discord, but they are willing to chat on Twitter. They love the nerdy neighborhood. They come on the show and talk with other fans that come on, other podcasters, other creators. So that's the thing. It's just an open door, essentially.
Right.
Um, and so my goal as well in the future is I'd like to build the neighborhood essentially in terms of, like my show is just a house in the neighborhood essentially. Or,
Right.
my what I do is one house and then everybody's got all these other houses. Like you yourself got voted in as the HOA president and beat out Amanda Waller. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know where else that happens where you can kick out Amanda Waller and take her seat in a neighborhood.
Yes.
There's no
Well,
other
because
show, no
because
other
I was going
thing.
up against Amanda Waller, fictional. If I was going up against
Yeah.
Amanda Waller, an actual person, I wouldn't have even made it to the election because he would just have me taken out. Right.
It's true. And I mean, we saw that like the next live that happened after the re-election, she kept taking me out, and then she took our friend Anthony, who was on an episode, like he got disconnected, and I was like, dang it, Wallace got him.
Yeah.
But don't worry,
Revenge,
everybody,
yeah.
we found out he was safe. He said that Harley Quinn saved him, so that's the good news. But what's kind of fun here too is that, obviously this is just very silly, but it's fun to be like, oh yeah, I live in a neighborhood with a fictional character, and
Yeah.
it's like it's its own separate world, yet it's complete reality, and that we're all actually part of the neighborhood. We all, especially Discord. I did Discord on a whim, once
Mhm.
Twitter started going crazy after, Musk's nonsense. And I was like, well, I want to make sure we want to stay connected with people, because that was the whole issue, that people were making fun of the whole thing. And I get it, but I was like, we're terrified of losing connection. That's really scary,
Right.
not being able to talk to people again. So I made the Discord, and people jumped in quicker than I thought. And now it's kind of exploded. So,
Mhm.
into what it is, and it's still growing, but it's a lot of fun. And the show, I really try to focus on indie creators the most.
Right.
We still talk about stuff like you came on an episode, we talked about the Harley Quinn show and the
Mhm.
comics that went with it and stuff. So I'm not one of those people that's like anti Big Two, like don't buy Big Two, this is terrible. Like,
Right.
but I
Right.
think there needs to be a balance, and I think highlighting indie creators also just helps the nerdy neighborhood, and that helps the
Mhm.
creators too, because then they can connect with other fans of the show and stuff, and see what, their audiences are wanting, what they like about their work, what, hey, maybe you could do this. This would be really cool. And hopefully it helps them too. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
just a really good time.
Yeah. No, and I absolutely love this idea that you've been doing because, first of all, just like you said, it's a very engaging community. I'm in the Discord as well too, and I got to say that one of the things I love about your Discord is that I run one with a few friends of mine
Hmm.
called the Alumnicasters, and we have a Discord, and I think you have probably maybe 10 or 20 less that's in our Discord. But when I go
Hmm.
into the friendly neighborhood, like there's always chats and conversations going on, like the engagement
Hmm.
and the conversations that happens are like really just mind blowing. I was just like, oh man, this is like really cool just to see like all the conversation that's been happening, not just about the neighborhood, but just about things that we're reading in comics or things that's happening
Hmm.
in media or, Marvel Snap Game, things like that. And I
Hmm.
really love that. But just like what you said, it's really cool to be able to be part of a community and think about an extension of ourselves being inside this neighborhood that we all live in, this virtual neighborhood of sorts. And I know that at one point you had said that you want to create an actual map of the neighborhood and show where all these places
Hmm.
are at, and like everybody can have their own house or area. So, the caption life would have like a studio slash apartment or something like that. And
Uh-huh.
it just seems like a lot of fun to really think creatively how to create a neighborhood where we live with these fictional characters that we absolutely love, and how
Yeah.
you have all these roles, and you can talk about these roles as well too. But on Twitter, I think once a week you have a role that you put out there. And you say,
Hmm.
what kind of neighborhood title should we vote in on? And we have the neighborhood priest, which I'm still shocked that Matt Murdock, even though he's Catholic, got voted in as priest. Like apparently the only qualification is that he had to be Catholic. And yeah, there you go. But we have the mayor, we have, the HOA president, like all these different kinds of roles that it's interesting to see who people suggest and then who we end up
Hmm.
voting for. And it's just really cool to see that and kind of imagine that without having to wait for, one of the bigger publishing companies to come up with something like that. So I really love this idea of creating community,
Hmm.
engaging in something that is fictional, but is just really exciting as well.
Yeah, no, thank you. Well, and I think that in of itself has created a lot of engagement, and that's
Hmm.
why I really leaned into it after a while by doing the poll votes and stuff. Because I know originally I started with the idea of just doing it like every couple episodes on the show, and then I realized, well, people like this, and people respond to the polls on Twitter, and they do suggest things. So
Hmm.
that's kind of taken over. Um, I am working on doing little things like, hey, if you're in the Discord, I'll give you guys first dibs,
Right.
and a nomination or two, and then the others can be filled in by other people on Twitter. Just because like if people are in the Discord, they're the ones really directly involved in the community. in a lot of ways, but I also don't want to penalize people on Twitter. If they don't use Discord, some people don't want to use them. That's fine.
Right.
But yeah, it's so funny with the roles people pick out. Like one of the earliest ones we did was best neighbor. Don't know how that happened, but we quickly decided our best neighbor. And do you know who it is, Sean? It may
I
have
can't
been before
remember.
you knew about the show.
Yeah.
Mystique. She is still our best neighbor.
Probably because she can transform into any neighbor that you want.
I mean, I guess, but like she's ruining everybody's lives, and we're just here like, well, you're the best. I mean, but that's what's so fun about this too, is that again, whether I agree with it or not, it's people can be as chaotic as they want with their voting, or people can be as serious as they want. Like people voted Mr. Freeze as our neighborhood ice cream man, which is right on the nose. It makes total sense.
Yeah.
Why would you argue against that? Other
Right.
than he's like probably gotta be the saddest ice cream man ever, handing ice cream, crying about Nora, like poor Victor. But yeah, it's just a lot of fun, and it really seems to build that active engagement. And I know like even somebody that's been super involved, pretty early on in the show, Eric, he dubbed himself the Punisher, based off the Punisher, and he just gives puns to the point where he requested in a Discord, can I have a channel just where we can put puns? And I said, I guess, unless somebody has an issue with it, sure. And now it's really cool because it's not just him putting stuff there. Everybody's putting puns there. So I was like, oh, people like puns here. Awesome.
Yep.
So yeah, so I'm pretty open with, whatever makes people excited to be a part of the community and help it grow like that.
Right.
Nothing is too silly to do. That's the whole point of it, is to enjoy it and have a lot of fun. And it's been really cool too to see some people bond it more than they otherwise would have, especially like on Twitter. Like I've heard some people be like, I wouldn't have gotten to know these people as much as I have through Twitter, but now that we're in a Discord, it's a lot more personable, I guess, at times.
Right. Yeah.
And they were like, it's not that I didn't want to get to know them, it's just I didn't see them on my timeline because Twitter's changing everything. So
yeah,
now I see what everybody's putting. So it's been really nice. And again, the show I'm still figuring out as I go, but we're doing the award show, the Neighborly's coming up, which is very, very exciting. It's been really cool for me to watch how the votes have gone. And obviously I can't say a thing, so I'm like exploding because I want to say things, because there's been a lot of very surprising winners, but happily so. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And that's one thing I really like about this award show. This is the first time we're doing it, so it's probably not going to go perfect, but it's just so cool because I was like, oh my gosh, these are people that would never get nominated for awards on other comic podcasts or comic shows, because the people that typically vote for them vote for only big two, or most often big two, which again, nothing wrong with big two, but it's nice to see so many creators excited, like just to be nominated. Like I've connected with most of them, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I just got home and I'm nominated. Yes, I would love to come on or send a video or have something you read for me on the screen because I can't be there. So the excitement is just, it's so cool, and it's bigger than I imagined. And it was over like 350 votes, which I was shocked by. Like, crazy.
Yeah, I was about to say, because the Discord community that you have created is not like 350. So this means that like
no, it's not.
Yeah, so this means like there's a lot of people on Twitter, and I think I looked at the view counts, because we can actually see that now on Twitter. But I think if I remember correctly, I think got over like 27,000 views or something like that.
Yeah,
so it's just crazy. It's just how like that has blown up for you, and it's really like, honestly, it's I'm not surprised though, because it's a really cool idea. It's something very different. A lot of people have been doing these kind of awards, like at the end of the year and things like that, but like you said, it's usually something to do with a comic run or something like that, and yours is very different because it's a different approach of how to think about these characters and these creators and people. And so I think it's just really cool. So I'm really happy for you that you've got so many for your first award show voting on this thing, and that it's just blowing up for you in terms of just the reach that it's getting and the people who are interested in things like that. So yeah, I just think it's really cool. And just as you mentioned as well, how people getting into it. I know in the Discord channel, people were talking about like we should have different like people running like different like schools or whatever to teach people. So we've been
Oh
coming
my
up
gosh,
with
you've been insane on that, Sean. I haven't even got into writing them all down or anything yet because you're just churning them out. And I'm like, do you want to just be in charge of naming everything? Like you're HOA president. You might as well be like the nerd architect, like
I guess.
whatever.
Which I gotta say, HOA is the best position I've ever had because I pretty much can do however much or however little I want and you can get away with it. Because I think like when people ask like, hey, can we do this? And I don't want to deal with it. I'm just like, I think that's a mayor's jurisdiction and not HOA.
Yeah, that every single time. But and I think that's what's fun too is that there's no like strict rules. Like nobody really takes this seriously. Sometimes
Yeah.
people like they'll try to make up a BS rule back at you to kind of
Yeah.
be like, well, I don't know. Like there's somebody named Chase in the Discord. He's been on the show multiple
Mhm.
times and he's hilarious because I know one time you said like that's mayor jurisdiction or something, and then he pulled out like all these like actual real life statutes or something. And we were all just mind blown. And he's like, yeah, I actually did this job that taught me all this like years ago. Like, all right, Chase, I guess.
Well, I think my response was well, that's not how it happens here in this neighborhood.
Right. Yeah, it's just so fun. And I want to go back to what you said with the award show and stuff. And I wouldn't say it's blowing up for me or even for the channel. That's the thing. A lot of people just voted. They didn't follow on Twitter afterwards or go subscribe to the channel. But I'm not really worried or upset about that because the thing is that I can tell just from how many people voted that all these people they want to have their voices heard and they want to support these other creators because I
Right.
think a lot of how that happened was creators were nominated, they saw it and they said, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to have this nomination. If you guys want to vote for me, feel free to vote. And people did, they voted. So that just shows that there is, for lack of a better word, I don't like using that word in this context, but there's a market for having something like this where we can support the indie community a bit more directly while still loving the big two and highlighting these other creators. Because I mean, we still have categories for like DC and Marvel. And what's interesting is that a lot of these categories were written so that you can nominate whatever you wanted.
Right.
There's only a couple categories where it's specified indie, smaller, larger, Marvel, DC. But a lot of the other ones, people could have just done a slam dunk, DC, Marvel all the way through if they wanted, but they chose not to. So I think it reached the right quote, the audience I was hoping to reach.
Right.
Because I feel like doing the neighborlies, which by the way you came up with.
Yeah. Well,
Full credit to Sean, HOA president. Yeah, but you came up with the name, which is fantastic. I was like, cool, done, sold. So like this show is so much bigger than me. It's really you all so much, and that's why I want it to stay being. I think that's what makes it so enjoyable, as well as that you all really have so much say in everything that happens as well.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, because I see your position as like you're more the curator, like you kind of help curate the things and everybody that's involved in the neighborhood kind of, makes it however they want. And I think that's what's really cool because this whole nerdy neighborhood idea is more of like a what if conversation that people can really get behind and not just say, what if in this situation that involves in the comics, but what if this is something that we belong in or part of in this neighborhood? And I think a neighborhood is just really more accessible because when you talk about a universe, then you start getting into like really weird, larger than life type of things. But when you talk about we all live in a neighborhood, that it just feels a lot more accessible and I think a lot friendlier in terms of being able to engage with that sort of idea. And it's fun. Like it's not, one of these, what if this person fights this person and then you have a whole, drag out fight of, chats between that or anything like that. It's just more of like, if we had somebody that had to have this role or, what if this happens in the neighborhood, who would be the people involved with that sort of thing? I think that's a really cool idea because it's not something that we see a whole lot of, but a lot of people can have fun with it. That is very inclusive and friendly. Because I don't think in this Discord, I've seen anyone say, this is a wrong idea, or I wouldn't agree with that
Mhm.
necessarily or anything, but it's just more of like someone suggests this person, in this scenario. And it's just, kind of like just playing off of each other. And so it's just really, really inspiring to see, to create an online community that kind of goes a little bit beyond than just let's chat about these things, but let's make it
Yeah.
a idea that we can engage with, that is just a lot of fun, that is very low stakes. It's not a video game that you have to create, or this whole visual world you have to create. Like the most visual that you've created was taking a map and then just labeling it basically for a neighborhood. And I think that was great. And I love that. But again, it's more like low tech type of stuff where we can really get engaged behind the idea versus trying to come up with something that's really, complicated and complex. And like I said, I just love this whole neighborhood idea. And I think it says something about creating an online community of people who enjoy very similar things, but have very different personalities and different outlooks, but they can all engage in this idea and have a lot of fun with it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's, if you're listening to this right now, like definitely check all this out, because this is just a fun thing to engage with. It's like what you said, Lauren. It's not something you have to engage with regularly. I know for me, like I would go days without looking at it, and then I'll go in one day and try to get
Mhm.
caught up on stuff and chat on
Yeah, and then
things.
Sean's there for like 3 hours spamming the,
All
the
the school
building the
names.
neighborhood chat with great ideas. Yeah, no, and that's why I like too. Again, it is low stakes. Some people are in there every day, some people aren't. But
Mhm.
the nice thing is that nobody's in there being like, where have you been? And like, not even really in a teasing way. Like everybody's just like, hey, you're here, man, cool. Like, I mean, you could tease, but yeah, everybody, it's low stakes. And I really appreciate you saying that about the neighborhood idea, because it's very easy to have a show or whatever and say, this is my community. Community
Right.
is a very nice word, but it's very broad. It's not specific. And when I was making it originally, even when it wasn't what it is now, I came up with the neighborhood part because I was like, well, a house is too small, because a house implies that this is still mine.
Right.
My house, my rules. And I was like, that's not right. Like that
Right.
that's what's bigger than that, but also something that, feels like a warm hug, because I'm a big fan, even in my own, work that I do in reality and make money off of. I'm a big fan of like the places that, it feels like homey. You get to sit for a while, not the, busy, more quote northern places where people come and go and nobody to talk to each other. I like the homey places. Um, that's what I wanted. And so when I thought of neighborhood, I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I want, because who's gonna be mean to Mr. Rogers? Who's gonna be mean to his
Yeah.
neighborhood?
Right.
Like, because and the whole point of it too is that I'm very big on everybody's invited to a neighborhood, of course, but if you abuse that invite, or you don't share that positivity, and not that you have to be super like, woo, everything's perfect all the time,
Right.
but just the general positivity, that's what the whole purpose of it is. And if you abuse that invite, or you kind of betray it, I guess that's kind of a strong word, then hey, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to make sure that, hey, we either connect, get on the same page, see what's up, or I'm going to, make sure nerdy community is protected from that, because that's the whole point. And one of my goals in the future is to make sure neighborhood is open to, other communities as well, to be a part of if they'd like.
Mhm.
Like I'd love to, you mentioned the visual stuff, and even though it is low key right now, and it's cool to hear that you're cool with that, because I was more like, oh, I need more visuals. Um, but I am hoping to do that, because like I'd love to make like just like an app or cheesy website where you open it, it's a neighborhood, and it connects to my show, it could connect to your show, connect to whoever else is in a neighborhood and has
Right.
something they want to share of some sort, or even just links to people's Twitters or whatever they want. It doesn't really matter to me, but that's kind of what I want. It's a neighborhood, it's a one-stop shop to connect with other uh people in the neighborhood, other communities within the neighborhood as well, because it's not just me, it's not just anybody else. It's a neighborhood that's forever growing, but hopefully will not become like, those very upper class white neighborhoods that scare me. Hopefully. But we'll see. I want to keep it homey, but we'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. Well, and two thoughts I have about that is, one thing I want to go back to how you said that you wanted this to be a community that everybody is a part of, that, and it's not, my community or anything like that. And I think one of the things that struck me very early on that I thought this was a cool idea is just the title itself, how it says your friendly, nerdy neighborhood. Because the fact
I'm
that
so
you're
glad you
saying,
caught on to that.
yeah, well, because no, I mean that's the thing is because as a listener and as a viewer, that's what makes you feel like is that it's not someone you're not a passive watcher or passive member, but you're more of an
Mhm.
active member because it's not
Yep.
Lauren's neighborhood. It's something that anyone could be a part of and have that experience of being able to have input and engagement and things like that. And so I think just the title alone really gives off that vibe, which is really cool. And then when you're talking about creating a neighborhood map with visuals and stuff like that, one of the things that just popped into my mind, I can't believe I haven't mentioned this before, but there's a website called Night Labs, and it's spelled KNIGHT, so like a medieval night,
Mhm.
called Night Labs, and they create a lot of these cool tools. And one of them is, I think, like you can upload a map and then you can create like little pinpoints or whatever that people can click on. So if you get like
Ooh.
somebody to create a neighborhood map, then you can
Mhm.
upload that, and then like people will have their own shows or whatever. They could, people can like go visit that place and then click on a YouTube video that they might want to show people, like
Yeah.
the trailer or something like that, and kind of have all those resources. So if you want to do something
Mhm.
like that, I think that might be something really cool where you can actually create something and make it a
Yeah.
little bit more interactive if people want to see what this neighborhood could entail for the people that's part of it and everything. So I can't believe I
Yeah.
didn't mention that to you before. I don't know why I didn't.
No, no, that's awesome, and honestly, that's kind of thing I'm looking for, but I'm hoping in the year to explore ideas like that and other options more,
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, I wanna make something that people will be useful to the community that they're gonna use. So maybe I want a website, but nobody likes websites anymore. Everybody wants apps. Alright, well, I guess I gotta figure out how to do an app,
I know.
but I'll do it
Yeah.
if that's what is going to be more accessible to people.
Right.
And I'm actually really glad that you picked up on the title because I was very intentional about that.
Hmm.
Saying your friendly neighborhood comic show rather than neighborhood comic show or even friendly neighborhood. The your had to be there. And there are a
Yes.
couple times where I looked at the name and I, thought about taking it out. And I was like, I can't take that out. Like that's the one thing
Yeah.
that has to stay because that is the whole purpose. It's not mine. It's not just there in the universe. And I take credit for it. It's literally yours every single
Hmm.
time. And I want it to stay that way. So yeah, that's not gonna ever change. That'll stay in the name.
Yeah. No, I love that. So, anything else that you want to mention or talk about the neighborhood? I know you pretty much touched on a lot of things, and what's funny is I had a list of questions, but you pretty much hit all of it in terms of what makes it different, what your plans you have for the future, and all that. So I didn't even have to bring those up.
Mhm.
But anything else about the neighborhood that you might want to, plug in or share about, or anything that you want people to know about?
Uh, I don't know.
If you
I
don't,
can't
that's
think of
totally
anything
fine.
specific. I just feel bad because I feel like I just spewed a bunch of ranting for like 35 minutes at least, and I still haven't like completely explained the idea. But that's kind of the thing with, I mean, the show, I do indie creators interviews once a week typically, and then I do a live show
Hmm.
every month. So if people are like, what do you actually do on the channel? That's the actual organization as of right now. And the live shows can change. The next live show will be the award show.
Right.
And then we'll probably do a February one, probably Valentine's Day themed just for fun. I don't know.
Oh, there you
Maybe we'll
go.
have some ship wars. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe we'll have some healthy debates. Hopefully, we'll see.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's just a lot of fun. And, I hope people, connect with it because it's open to them. Because even though I may really love Nightcrawler and Supergirl, you don't have to love the same things I like to pop in there.
Right.
Every day I learn something new that somebody in the Discord or on Twitter likes. And I'm like, I know you liked that, but they start talking about because somebody posted a comic or even in our thirst posting chat, which that's also ridiculous. There's so much silliness there that,
Yeah.
if people see it, they're probably like, "What is this? I don't know." So, if you want a sillier place, but a safe place to have fun and just be yourself, it's a great place to be. If you're looking for something super professional, it's not there right now.
But a lot
Not
of
there.
fun.
Stick
Yeah.
with Sean's show. Yeah,
Yeah.
stick with Sean's show for the professional stuff.
I just
But if
make it
you wanna
look
see
like it's
Sean
professional. I don't know
right,
what
but
I'm
if you
doing half
wanna
the
see
time.
Sean as HOA president, you have to come at least join the Discord because he is unhinged. Unhinged.
Well, and early on, I think people are trying to, not provoke, but I think they just want to see what I would say. And
Mhm.
it was just funny because I was trying to think like, how should I say this as HOA president that will get me reelected?
I
No,
was gonna
but
say, are you gonna be rerunning in November? Because we'll do them again in November, Sean.
you know what I should have done? I should be like, now that I won, I am bowing out and I'm going to be self-appointing the person I really want to be HOA president.
If you
No.
had listen, the worst thing you could have done probably would have been if you had done that and then self-appointed the Joker. Because I had people saying they would leave the neighborhood. Definitely for
Yeah.
mayor, so I don't know how they feel about HOA president, but they probably wouldn't like that either. Like people are really not happy about,
Well,
and it's going to continue this year because now apparently we have to have a debate about the Joker. I don't know, like I just don't want to be there, but I have to be.
well, and it depends on what Joker, right? Because if we're getting the Joker from the Harley Quinn show who won as mayor,
Right.
for like, good reason. Like, it's just really funny how they approach that. It's like, yes, I'm a villain, but I'm not a
Right.
monster. Like, I think everybody should have, universal health care and all that. It's just so
Right. Oh
funny
my
to watch
God.
that. So I think if you
Yeah.
like show everybody that episode, people could be like, okay, I can see the Joker being in this role.
Yeah, it was just that blew my mind because I'm not a fan of the Joker. I mean, I think he's
Mhm.
a solid villain, so I'm not like trashing his creation or being a villain, but
Right.
he drives me insane. And then that episode happened, and I'm pretty sure we talked about this when you were on the show because we talked about the show in the series. But it was just like I want to hate this, but they're not letting me. How
Yeah.
dare they make me like the Joker?
Yeah.
What?
Well, because it's a
Crazy.
new kind of Joker, because it's not just how he was
Mhm.
before, but he went through that weird, psychological change, and then it kind of like the melding of the
Uh-huh.
two. So it's actually hysterical funny, but I think people are behind it because it's not the Joker that you see traditionally in the comics and
Yeah.
media and stuff like that. So it's like a fun Joker that you can really get behind on that. So
Yes.
yeah. Well, that is the friendly nerdy neighborhood. Before I let you go, I always like to talk about what comics that we're currently reading, and I also
Mhm.
ask people who listen to the show what comics they're reading as well too. But as our guest, I wanted to ask you first: what comics are you currently reading that you want to share with us?
Um, I'm pulling up my League of Comic Geeks because I will forget.
Yeah,
That's not that I don't love what I love. I'm just like, God, what
there's
am
a
I
lot.
reading now?
Yeah.
So, Poison Ivy, I've been very vocal about. I
Yes.
will already say it. People will probably hear this on the award show that my pick for best DC series of the year is Poison Ivy.
Hmm.
That award for me, that's what I would give it. It's absolutely phenomenal.
Yes. Yeah.
It's been a long time coming with her getting it, so I'm very excited about that. Captain Marvel is the longest ongoing I've been reading. I got back into comics in like 2018, 2019.
Hmm.
So I've been reading it since then. I haven't put it down.
Right.
Kelly
Right.
Thompson has kept me. I do read Daredevil, so I have fulfilled your quota.
Yes.
I read it. So you do not have to shun me. Um, Grimm from Boom Studios by Stephanie Phillips, who's one of my favorite writers. That's been better than I thought. And I didn't think it would be bad because I love Phillips, but it
Hmm.
surprised me by how good it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Moon Knight is absolutely phenomenal. If I had to pick a Marvel book of the year, it would be Moon Knight. It's been almost 18 issues, 18, I guess, by the time this is recorded. And every single one's been a banger. Like every time I'm like,
Mhm.
maybe I'll just be kind of like subpar, okay, whatever. No, it's a banger. And I'm like, how dare you, Jen McKay and Alessandro Capuccio? Like, what?
Yes.
There it's just wow, it blows my mind. And so I've been getting that one a while. Specs from Boom Studios by David M. Booher. He's actually a good friend of mine and he's wonderful. So I read everything he writes. He will stab you in the feels every single time. It's great, but you will be in
Mhm.
pain. The Harley Quinn animated series, I read the Legion of Bats one's going on right now. And Immortal X-Men, Eve, Children of
Mhm.
the Moon, which is from Boom. That's a spin-off of the first Eve. That one's
Mhm.
really good. Hell to Pay, and I read some X books like X Terminators, which has been very surprising. Like that book's insane. Like
Yeah.
X
That's what I've been
Terminators
hearing,
is
yeah.
like that's like 20-year-old me in college. Like I'm looking on that and I'm like, oh, I'm getting war flashbacks, but I can't stop reading it because it's just so fun.
Yeah.
It's so chaotic, but it's a really good time. And like 8 Billion Genies is phenomenal. And do a power bomb finish. That was really great.
Mm-hmm. The Exterminators comic book, like I've heard of, but I have a friend who goes by the username Vegan Super Kick, I think, if I'm saying it correctly, or Super Vegan Kick. I think it's Vegan Super Kick. I can't remember. I'm really bad with names, but I remember she did a TikTok video where it was really fascinating. And when I heard it, I was like, man, I got to read this book now. But she opened up by saying, have you ever been in a situation where you're in a bar and then like your ex-boyfriends showed up and they're like all vampires or something like that? And I remember thinking, like, who are you hanging out with? But apparently she's talking about exterminators. I was like, okay, that's interesting. But yeah, so that one I know I definitely want to read. I started reading Immortal X-Men because you had suggested it. And it's one of those things where just like X-Men series is, I don't know what's going on, but I know that I love it.
Yep.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly that Poison Ivy was one that I did an issue review for Comic Watch. And when I think it was issue number 4, but I remember reading that one, I was like, I gotta get the trade paperback now because this is a fantastic issue and stories. It sounds really interesting and really cool. So I know that's on my pickup list when it's available. So no, those are all great.
Poison Ivy was just so good. And Immortal X-Men, I love that you said that with like that book and I guess the X books in general. It's like I don't know what's going on, but I love it because I hear so often and I understand it because I've said the same thing to other books recommended to me. So I can't fault them, but at the same time, it's like people are like, oh, there's so many X books, I can't keep up. I'm like, you literally aren't understanding me. You can read whatever you want.
Yeah.
And you might need a gap or two filled to like really be able to enjoy it because it's like an essential thing or two. But past that, you don't have to understand everything to enjoy it.
Right.
And a lot of people, I think, just they don't believe it because they're like, oh, okay, but you're saying that because you like it. I'm like, literally, that's not the reason. I do like it, but that's not the reason.
Yeah.
So it is crazy, but the X books have been kind of weird lately. Like I used to read like almost all of them except maybe 2 or 3, and now I read like 2. Like I read Immortal X-Men and I read Exterminators, which is only a limited series, which I'm sad about. Give me more chaotic stuff with women. That it's just so fun. Like, give me that.
Yeah, I know. Well, I know the next year, some of the new lineups are coming out. Like, I'm definitely going to be subscribing to Nightcrawlers, and I'll say this: Immoral X-Men, just because of the cover. Like, that was something that I'm like, this just looks fascinating. I just want to know what's it about because it's the cover where Emma Frost has Dr. Sinister like in a neck chain.
Oh yeah.
It's totally
I know the cover.
Yeah, it's totally giving
Listen, Sean.
that immoral
every time I
vibe.
see that cover, okay, I see a lot of covers. I see a lot of great covers, and I know you do too. But if you put that on the screen right now, my brain couldn't look away from it. It ignites a part of my brain that I can't otherwise turn on. Like it's crazy how good that cover is, and how we haven't gotten something like it before. But yeah, I mean, what's interesting though is that those books are going to be part of the Sins of Sinister event, so they're limited.
Right.
They're just attached to that. So I'm interested to see how they're going to actually hold up. But it looks a lot of fun. Nightcrawlers. Listen, I'm gonna be getting it too, especially that first cover because it's so good.
Oh, I know.
But like Cy Spurrier, you're hurting me with Legion of X-Man. Get the horns away from her. I swear, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The books that I just finished reading. So I gotta say this. I've been saying the last 4 episodes that I'm going to be starting my read of Superman, Son of Kal-El. I have not started it yet. It's been a month.
Honestly, I don't blame you. I read like the first 5 or 6 issues. It started off really strong for me and then kind of dipped off, and I've heard some people say, man, you should have held on, and they may be right, but I was not in a rush to keep on with it.
Yeah, me, I just haven't started yet. Like, that's my problem is that I haven't had a moment because I have all 18 issues now, and that's all of them that they're releasing.
Nice.
So I just need to sit down and start reading it. I just haven't yet. So that's been my biggest problem. But I did just finish reading the latest issue of Savage Avengers, Star Wars Visions, which came out a while back, and then the latest issue of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Saturday Morning Adventures. And all those are really good. I will say Star Wars Visions is one that it's based off of the same name of the Disney Plus series that they had where it's anime style. And I think
Yes.
the comic is done by the same person who did the story for the Disney Plus show.
Okay.
It just didn't hit for me for some reason. Like I was confused by
Yeah.
some points. The art style and everything was very similar, and some of the visuals were really cool. But I think there was some parts I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. Like I must be missing something
Oh,
here. But Savage Avengers is really good. If you haven't been reading that, it's a wild ride to say the least. It's
yeah. I've heard. I know. David Pepose, if I said his name right.
yeah,
He's the one writing
Pepos.
guy, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great guy from everything I've seen, at least.
Oh
But so I
yeah.
was really excited to see him on Idol. I haven't gone to it either. I've had to narrow down stuff, and as you can see by the list I read off for
Yeah.
like 3 minutes, I still have not back enough.
Yeah.
So
Oh no, no. Yeah, we had David on the show talking about Savage Avengers a little bit, and it's
Mhm,
just yeah, it's something that if you want just a very different kind of team up story, this is a team up with people that some of them you're probably familiar with if you've been involved with comics a little bit. Some of them are more obscure characters that you probably haven't seen before, and it's
mhm.
fantastic. It works really well. The chemistry and dynamics is really well with that team, and it's just every issue is just kind of a really wild ride. And
Yeah.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Saturday Morning Adventures is a lot of fun because it's the nostalgia piece for me where it's the cartoons I grew up with, and then they always throw in a lot of just fun 80s, 90s nostalgia, fun
Mhm,
little quirky things I put in there. So one of the panels they had Michelangelo playing with the original Game Boy, and that was something I grew up
mhm,
with. And so it's a good story, it's a fun story, it's very campy, but they made it that way. And so as long as you are going in knowing that it's supposed to be campy and the audience is for those who grew up in the 80s and 90s or people who love the 80s and 90s, that's
mhm.
what it's really for. And they have a lot of those cool things in there. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody that might want to pick it up and all that, but it's a really fun one if you want something that's a little bit campy and lighthearted. And that it's very episodic as well too. Like you can pick up the issue and read it without having to read the previous one. So if you're worried about that, you can just pick up any of them and you won't be lost at all. It's very, self-contained in all those. So
I might have to try it because ever since
yeah.
you posted, I don't remember which series it was. Maybe it's the current one, but you posted at some point on Twitter about like the current run or something, and it was like so good. And I remember asking, like, well, can I start with this run? And then somebody told me no. And I was like, well, I was gonna read the turtles. Now I'm not, I guess. Like, because I don't know where to start. So if
Yeah.
that's something that I can actually read. And honestly, I
Mhm.
am very pro camp. I think there should be more camp things again.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, obviously certain camp does the thing with camp too is that some of it ages well and a lot of it doesn't. Like
Right.
there's a lot of stuff from like 2000s where like there's a lot of campy like film and TV then that you
Yes.
watch now that doesn't age well, but there's a couple golden ones that age pretty well now. So
Yeah.
I'm all for camp. Like
Oh
give
yeah.
me some more fun comics. Like I like the deep and serious and ripping my heart out. I read those all the time, but I just want like a breath of fresh air. So that sounds really cool. I might have to try that one.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what's fun about this one is just like what you said with aging well, they have the benefit of knowing if those things that they're writing about did age well, or they can write it where
Yeah.
it does, and so they don't have to worry about is this going to be, okay in 5 or 10 years because it's all, clearly living in the 80s and 90s, and they know,
Yeah.
how those things have aged. So, if they throw in a Game Boy, everybody will love that, and there's no controversy around it or anything like that. And
Right.
so yeah, and yeah, just pick up any random one of them and you can read it without feeling lost or anything. And it's just a lot of fun. It's just, especially if you love
Yeah.
the cartoons from the 87 show, it's definitely in that style of not just the art style but also just the universe and the dialogue and the characters style as well too is very good. So
Mhm. Yeah.
so we also asked people who listen to the show what comics they're reading, and because it
Mhm.
was New Year's, and usually I put this out on Saturday evening because yesterday was New Year's Eve. A lot of people probably didn't see
Mhm.
this, and that's totally fine. So it didn't get a lot, but in our Discord community for the Illuminacasters, which by the way, if anyone's ever interested in joining that, I'll put a link in the show notes as well. We had two people that shared what they're reading. Carson had said that he is reading the current Batman, which is written by Chip Zdarsky, Dark Knights of Steel, which I absolutely love. Have you read that yet?
I read the first couple issues. Then they made me mad
that's
that
right.
they changed Kara's name.
Yeah.
And there's no explanation for it. Like nobody will say. And I don't blame Taylor for it. I don't think it was Tom Taylor that said I need to change her name. I believe it's DC editorial. And anyways, so I kind of dipped off it. But it's a really cool like AU universe. So I don't like to hate on the series because but I'm just nitpicky because that is so important to me. I'm like, come on. Like I could have had actual, canonly not straight, because it's not labeled, but not straight Supergirl, which makes sense. She was born in Krypton and actually grew up there. But so that really frustrated me that DC did that intentionally because God forbid,
If it helps though, I don't think it's supposed to be the same character. Like I don't think it's because in this, I get what you're saying. But in this story, you find out that it's actually Kal-El's sister and not cousin.
Yeah, but that's a small detail they changed so that they could get away with it further. It's again, they're still directly related by blood. Kara still has the blonde hair. She looked like Kara. When I read that first issue and saw her before I read that Zala or whatever name, Taylor was, to my guess, again, I actually know DC editorial, but was probably made to change because I know he likes Supergirl from, and he's written her in other ways. Right. Even though don't talk to me about the Cease either, but like it just it's just like that doesn't make sense because like you said, it's like, but that's his sister. That's so different. You think I don't notice that you took my blue Kurt shirt essentially, gave me a blue shirt that didn't have Kurt on it, and said, "Ta."
Yeah. No, I totally get that.
But no, it's such a cool series, and that's why I picked it up because I'm a big fan of Taylor's writing. The art's fantastic, and I'm so excited because I love AUs. I think that's what Taylor's best at, rather than the ongoings. Even though he does well with those, I think AUs are his strongest suit usually. Right. So, anyways, but it is really good, and I'm glad it's doing as well as it is because that means that we'll get more AUs from DC fully. And I think that's something that we need to keep saying because if everything was just actual canon, that does not work in today's world. It may have worked in the 70s. It doesn't work today.
Yeah. And then Marty from the Panel to Panel podcast has said that he's reading Blue Beetle 2006. It's been great so far and very new reader friendly. So I'll be honest, I've not read any Blue Beetle before. But it's good to know that this current run, if I want to read that, I could just jump right in and read that. So that's good. Yeah.
Good prep for the movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, well, Lauren, thank you very much for coming on the show and talking about your friendly, nerdy neighborhood. Before I let you go, where can our listeners find you and the neighborhood online?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me on. It's so cool to be interviewed by our HOA president. Like it's an honor. And Waller has not cut me off yet, so that's great. I think the new protections you've put in are working. So thank you, such a great HOA leader. But in all seriousness, again, thank you so much for having me on. I'm always such a fan of your podcast, and you're so great with building your own community as well. You can find me on Twitter at friendlynbhdbi. That's the same on Instagram. I don't do much on there, but you can follow me there if you want. The show's Twitter is at MBHD Comic Show. And then the Discord, that's linked in the Twitter page. So if you just follow Twitter or go click on the Twitter, you can click that invite link. If you have any issues, you can reach out to me. I'm happy to help. Or you can ask Sean, I guess, if he's up for it. He is HOA president, so maybe he wants to say and who gets in. I don't know.
Do I have that power? Maybe I need to start doing that now.
I know. Maybe we need some statutes to limit your power. He's giving you too much.
Well, and all those links, I'll make sure to put in the show notes. So if you're looking for those, just check the episode page, and you can be able to click it straight from there. So. Lauren, thank you very much again. Have a great rest of your day and have a great start of the new year.
You too. Thank you, Sean.
And that wraps up another episode of The Caption Life. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. You can follow us on social media at Caption Life. For more information about us and all of our previous episodes, visit thecaptionlife.com.